I hate doing intros.
Yeah, that's the worst part.
I'm really bad at intros, but this is the unfiltered me you get that I edit out all the bloody time.
I think you should keep it. I think these are like behind the stage scenes which everyone would love to see. So, yeah, go
Yeah,
for it.
maybe. Right. So, hello. This is a bit different video today. I was not pressured into this, I swear. No, it was fine. I'm joined with Gourav Mohanty, author of Sons of Darkness and Dance of Shadows, and we're just gonna chat about stuff, chat about a book, chat about anything, really. There you go. Do you want to tell people where they can find you and all that?
Firstly, I think we should congratulate you on an amazing intro. This is your first intro for your first interview on your channel, and I think I'm really honored to be here. And hello, everyone else. I'm Gourav Mohanty, the author of the Rag of Vrita series. Finally, I can get that pronunciation out of the way. It's a Rag of Vrita. It has 2 books, Sons of Darkness. I think it's there somewhere in the background. Yeah, okay, Sons of Darkness, and that's Dance of Shadows. I have Dance of Shadows here. And it's a Indian grimdark reimagination of a mythological epic poem called the Mahabharata. And I'm here today to harass Mair mostly and pressure her into finally starting interviews of authors. We have been friends for a very long time, and she has been very instrumental. I think we're going to discuss this during the course of this interview. Very instrumental in making some of my dreams come true. So let's have fun. Thank you so much, Mair, for having me.
No, it's fun. Number one. I have some questions, and I did ask a couple of Instagram friends who I buddy read Dance of Shadows with, and you should have seen that group chat. Like, it was mental.
I love getting the screenshots from you guys. I think one of the greatest feelings an author can have is get these mid-reading updates. See, reviews are amazing, obviously, but when people go out to write reviews, it's like sometimes like doing intros of interviews. You're polished and it's very nicely written, and you have a structured overview analysis, because obviously you can't get into spoilers. But your mid-reading updates, which you and your buddy reading group sent me, it was all screams and exclamations, and why are you doing this? And I felt that was like just so heartwarming and validating for me as an author. So yeah, anyway, please.
Well, that's how I ended up being friends with Stephen Arian, weirdly enough. I did a story, tagged him in it, and then he tracked me down at Worldcon, and then it was like, cool. Wow. Yeah, that's a bit weird.
That's awesome.
So I'm always like, tag authors in your posts, guys. You never know, you could become friends. Anyway,
cheers.
I have something. I mean, I don't know. I've watched some of the interviews, but my brain's like mush, and I can't remember all of them. But one of the questions I have is like, what drew you to write this story? Why this retelling? Why this way you structured it? And why is it in grimdark?
Okay, so the thing with Indian mythology is, which is very unique from the rest of the mythologies across the world, be it Greek, Celtic, Norse, is that our mythology is still something which we worship today. Like, the Mahabharata is still considered a religious text in Hinduism. Krishna, who's one of the major characters in Sons of Darkness, who's this Tywin Lannister meets Jaime Lannister kind of a situation. My mom worships him in her, with prayer room. So there is this one link which has followed with this story which we have, this Mahabharata, which is our Troy, which is our Odyssey. It has always divided characters into black and white, because that's what religion or folklore or ancient tales always do. They are lessons in morality. So you have this black versus white. But when I read it, I saw the myriad characters who are there in these epic poems, and I felt there is just so much scope to explore the flaws in these characters. That was just so amazing, because this has always been in my thought that, I don't think this is that the line between good and evil is so starkly defined in Mahabharata. I think whoever has written this, we know that Ved Vyas wrote this 4,500 years ago, but of course we don't really have evidence to suggest that he actually penned it down. But whoever came up with this has left so much room for interpretation, and I felt that interpretation was something which I always did in my mind. Till I read A Game of Thrones. That was my first introduction to epic fantasy. And when I read that book, I remember constantly thinking, I wish Mahabharata was rewritten or reimagined like this. Because, Game of Thrones introduced me to a world where it is just full of anti-heroes. No one is a villain in their own story. They are just thrown into situations where they have to make the best out of it, depending on their family, who do they love, their situation. They're not measuring it as good and bad. For them, those actions are good. Maybe for the rest of the world, it's not. So that has always attracted me. This black, no white, 50 Shades of Grey, right? So that has always been something which has been a draw for me. And after I finished a Game of Thrones, and A Song of Ice and Fire, really, I thought that okay, I wanted to read something similar in an Indian setting. I hunted for it a lot, and then I slowly discovered that epic fantasy as a genre has not been explored in the Indian situation much, and definitely nothing grimdark. So I just started out as a hobby. It was just like my imagination and daydreams. I thought, let me give it a shot and writing it. And I was working in a law firm. This is a very long answer. I apologize for that. But I was working in a law firm, and we have really long hours, and I don't need to speak to you about long hours, Mair. You have like 1,000 professions at the same time. So, I guess in a way, writing was therapeutic for me. This escape. Much like reading, except I could torture my own characters because I couldn't torture my boss. So I think that allowed me this vent, and before I knew it, I created a world which I really enjoyed traveling and destroying and creating. So that was the essence of how this journey started. This has always been a fantasy of mine since I was a kid, and I think I just do it. I manifested it of sorts.
No, that's good. I mean, I definitely see the Game of Thrones inspiration, especially in book one, because again, it's sort of like, I love Game of Thrones. Let's face it, George R. R. Martin probably isn't going to finish it, so it's kind of I'm always wanting, I want that, but it's slightly different, and having it in an Indian setting is just because I love reading things from like different cultures and stuff. And it just broadened my horizons a bit. And I don't know. I just loved it. Like once I got through like the first quarter of Sons of Darkness, I was like, I don't want to put this down. I just kept going. So no.
It's amazing we're speaking about George R. R. Martin when he just, I think, released some interview transcript that Winds of Winter is his curse, and that it should have been done 10 years ago, but HBO deadlines keep coming in the way. So yeah, I keep hoping. I have fingers crossed that maybe he names me his heir to finish the last book and gives me his
finish the series.
I'm named in his will.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. If anybody could, because there will be a few authors on that list. You would be on that list, possibly Joe Abercrombie, but I don't think he would. I don't think he'd do it though.
I don't think he'd do it either.
I think he's got the ability, but yeah. So. What was the difference for you between writing Sons of Darkness to Dance of Shadows? Easier, harder, with deadlines? What?
I think it was definitely easier in the way that I had progressed as a writer. I knew what my flaws were in the process of writing, and what I could do better. The fact that I was no longer working full-time in a law firm also helped streamline the entire process. But more importantly, there was no longer this whole thing that I wanted to create another Indian Game of Thrones. I felt that I have somewhat done that in book one, and Dance of Shadows could be just one place. And I think we have discussed this line which I love using, that I could be more GM than GRRM. So I remember just sitting actually on this couch itself and just thinking that what are the scenes which I really want, and I came up with these situations like a gladiator situation, a librarian princess, the three cities of the Northeast, which we explore in this second book. And I thought I want to bring this into the book. I want a Devdasi, which is like a Indian classical dancer, a temple dancer. I wanted that character profile into this book. And these are all my characters. These are not in Mahabharata. So all of these aspects, I know that it was a lot more ambitious. One, because they were my characters. I was no longer drawing inspiration from a Game of Thrones, or for that matter, the source material of Mahabharata. But I felt that just allowed me to spread my wings a lot better, and I think it was just a lot more fun to write this as well, because, the Sons of Darkness still follows. Like, I knew from the very beginning, since I was in law school, what the ending is going to be. In Dance of Shadows, I just could see the milestones vaguely through the fog. So discovering it, driving in that mist and fog was just like a lot of fun for me. So I really enjoyed the process.
Oh, okay. So it's not like playing in the sandbox already created, in a sense.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
would definitely make sense. But in terms of the deadlines, you did say, yeah, that was interesting because that is something which I never encountered in Sons of Darkness. Obviously, I was a debut author, and I had no contract when I wrote this. But in Dance of Shadows, I did miss my deadline. I was supposed to finish it, but I think I was 3 months late, which compared to George R. R. Martin makes me gold. But my publishers were very kind and they were very accommodating and they were very nice about it. Like they not once did they ask that, oh, hurry up or something on those lines, which was good. But yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of authors, like when publishers set deadlines, most authors I think miss them.
Yeah.
It's my understanding of it. It's kind of like, I'm not going to hit that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I keep saying that IST Indian Standard Time is actually Indian Stretchable Time. So that is a time zone which I think authors around the world follow, and I think publishers are aware of this. All they want is like a heads up if they're
yeah,
going to get delayed. Because after coming into this world, I've realized that like publishing schedules are almost like a year long. We think that okay, we're going to market the book 1 or 2 months before, and that's it, and then the book goes out. But no, they have to plan everything 1 year in advance. So, as an author, as a writer, what your duty is that if in case you know that you're not going to make the mark, you need to let them know in advance so that they can adjust accordingly, rather than throw it as a surprise that hey, it's not going to be ready yet. So, yeah.
yeah. I've always thought of the idea is be transparent with
Hmm.
anybody.
Um,
What was your favourite to write within both books, and what was the hardest, do you think?
Okay, in Sons of Darkness, my favorite thing was to write Krishna because
Mm.
the thing which I've loved about all the books, like obviously there are different things to love in fantasy. Fantasy as a genre is as wide as the medical field. You have your urban fantasy, you have your political fantasy, you have your cozy fantasy, and it just goes on, right? But the thing which has been common across all the books I love is political strategizing, where people are
Yeah.
using their minds to get out of things. I recently spoke with Stephen Aryan and I revealed this because it is no longer my password, but my password for my Gmail for the longest time was Tywin Lannister because that like really reached out to me, right? And similarly, I remember Dumbledore's line in Harry Potter where he said this thing that being smarter than most men, when I make mistakes, the consequences tend to be a lot larger.
Yeah.
All those mistakes. And really, that line reached out to me. So I wanted to write Krishna like that. Where Krishna is this guy who thinks of everything. He's thinking 9 steps ahead. But towards the end of Sons of Darkness, he makes a mistake. And what are the consequences of that? Because he overlooks something and he doesn't register that, okay, he has missed something. And what are the consequences of that? Dealing with that was something which I really enjoyed. Also because like my friends say this and I somewhat agree, while writing Krishna I just put myself in him, so all his responses, all his smirks, the mischief that he has was all something which I felt I was naturally responding to. So my friends keep calling me Krishna and that you've put yourself into Krishna a lot, which is not a great admission to make online, but I just had a lot of fun with it and I feel that his responses are very much like mine to any given situation. So that was a lot of fun and very easy to write. In book two, what I really enjoyed writing was discovering something new, romance. Okay,
Oh,
and
God, that's the part. I love that part. Not gonna lie. Yeah, go on.
yeah, because in book one, you have your crushes and you have your infatuations, and Krishna and Satyabhama have a very mature relationship where
Hmm.
they have moved beyond husband and wife and they're companions and partners in crime. But in book two, we were dealing with this blossoming romance, and that is something I have never written about or never even thought of writing. It just started developing because the initial plot structure was this librarian princess. I'm not going to say who her romantic partner is, but figuring out how to save someone from an ancient plague, and that's the basic plot and how she does that. And this story started developing on the side, and I found this when I wrote some of those paragraphs, and I'm like, this is so cute. They are adorable together, and I reminded myself, Gaurav, you're writing a grimdark fantasy. Okay, this is cozy fantasy. You're trying to be Travis Baldry while being Joe Abercrombie. Though I don't know how are you going to reconcile that. But I thought, I don't care because I was just having so much. It was adorable. It was really cute. Maybe it was my Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks phase. I think I'd watched a bunch of those movies around that time. But I really enjoyed that because that allowed me to explore a kind of writing which I never knew I was capable of. And given your reviews and given people's feedback about that aspect, it's been really nice. So
Would you
who knows,
write
the
a
next book.
romance though?
Thank you.
Would you explore that side of writing a romance, or more of a epic fantasy with heavier romance themes to it, or considering how much
I
you
would
love
love to,
romance? Yeah.
because given the pleasure that I derived from writing about baggy and loosely, okay, it was just something. It just brought me so much joy and smiles to my face. See, when I wrote Dantavakra, I was laughing, because he was
Yeah.
such a funny, goofy guy, and it was funny. When about Karna and Duryodhan, their goof ups again made me laugh. It was like a ha ha sort of situation in my mind, but writing out baggy and loosely just made me smile, like a nice, cute grin. And that is a feeling which I had not experienced while writing Sons of Darkness. And I would love to get that high again. But again, it depends on how the book unravels. And I hope so. I really hope to give it a shot. But let's see.
I mean, I definitely read a romance. Wrote it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure other people would as well. On that note, actually, weirdly, me and my buddy reader friends were quite shocked that Dance of Shadows went almost backwards, kind of because it overlaps in timeline a little bit with Sons of Darkness. How much of that was due to the mythology versus your own version? Did you have to add anything or take anything away to sort of tell the story you want to tell with the character arcs and the character builds you wanted to do? That kind of.
Right. So in terms of Dance of Shadows, I can safely say that 99.99% is my creation. None of it even remotely happens in the Mahabharata. From Bahura, the librarian princess, the temple dancer, they're all my characters. They have no feature in that book. But I remember when I was writing, initially when I had written Sons of Darkness, Karna and Duryodhana and Mati's journey, okay, they were part of Sons of Darkness, but obviously the book had like bludgeoned and blossomed into, I don't know, like a Wheel of Time series. And as a debut author, I had to cut the book; it had become too ambitious. But I didn't want to get rid of that part because that was something I wanted to show what happened to Karna. While Battle of Mathura is taking place in Sons of Darkness, a lot of people had these questions: wait, where is Karna? Where is Mati? What happened to Nala? There were a lot of questions unanswered. And this is when I think I read A Feast of Crows and Dance of Dragons. That is George R. R. Martin's fourth and fifth book, which again flow parallel to each other. They are geographically are the same, like, in different regions, but they flow parallel to each other. Similarly, even Malazan, the second and third book, Dead House Gates and Memories of Ice, flow parallel to each other. And I realized that, this was such a cool way to expand the world horizontally rather than vertically. And get everyone together in the third book ultimately. So I thought, okay, this is a great idea. I don't have to cut down anything to fit it in Sons of Darkness. I can simply just let go. And I'm glad I let go, because once I decided to let go, Bahura was born, the librarian princess. She wasn't in the original plan. But as we figured the second book, she decided to, she came in my mind, and it was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, because Bahura is one of my favorite characters. And I'm not going to say too much because something happens to her that left me speechless towards the end. And I don't want to say it's a spoiler. But I loved that moment with her. Probably one of the most standout moments in that book.
Thank you.
Actually, weirdly enough, talking on that, there's a lot of like heavy and severe violence. What's your process for going through that? Because nothing felt too gratuitous just to be there, just to be like, oh, this is grimdark. It felt very much natural for the decisions of the characters and the world you were building. So what was your like thought process to sort of go through that and to sort of, again, make sure it's not overly, gratuitous, not being a bit repetitive there, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. So how my process works is, when I initially just write whatever I have in my mind, and I get to the writing part, I don't edit while I'm writing. And when I've written all these scenes, then I look back at the violent scenes, when I'm editing or giving it a glance over. Because how I edit is I write, my book is divided into adhyayas, which are like these chapter blocks. So once I finish a chapter block, I edit that, and then I send it to my friends, and then I move to the next chapter block, and so on and so forth. When I'm looking at the chapter, and if there are any violent scenes, I really want to make sure that there is a reason why that violent scene exists. Number one, number two, it needs to further the plot somehow. It needs to create. It needs to either reflect on the world, or not just like a superficial reflection, but something which makes a big, like the violence itself is a major plot mover, because of that something or the other happens. And third and most importantly, what I've always felt is subtlety, especially when it comes to violence vis-a-vis women. Okay, that is a tightrope to walk, especially because I'm a man. I might not have the sensitivity which women might have, because we have had different experiences. So obviously, my alpha readers and beta readers are women, but even then, I want to make sure that none of the violence feels, for lack of a better word, titillating in any kind of way. It needs to horrify, but not in the sense as a gore porn, nothing like that. But it just leaves like, I don't write everything down. It leaves a lot to your imagination as well, because there are these spaces between the violent scenes where I'm not using that word, and I also try and make sure I don't use the exact, let's say, biological term to be used, so that it kind of, I try and use the power of English language to get over these word blocks by using metaphors, and so that the mind itself unravels it rather than I'm throwing it at your face. So I remember the first scene, one of the most violent scenes in Dance of Shadows is something which happens in the first chapter block. That is a reflection on it is a reflection of reality, because it does happen in India, in very select villages, and a lot in Africa. But it is also a reflection of these tyrannical religious forces that exist in that empire, and that religious force also plays a big role, because they have taken over that entire empire. They are the ones who are the real power holders. So that violence was a reflection of how deep and dark they can go, but not violence for the sake of violence, because the way they're justifying that violence, that they have been completely brainwashed into believing that this is the right way to go. Sometimes violence can be just for the sake of violence, and I do not like that. This was not to torture anybody, this was not to punish anybody, but it was just for a higher ideal. So I think that's what I wanted to show, and hopefully it came out okay.
I mean, it definitely came across that way, because I knew about that certain practice that happened, and it is definitely horrifying. But I think, again, interesting that you say you use metaphors a lot, because the way you approached that particular theme, it's kind of felt like you approached it a lot with like care and stuff. And I mean, at least for me, and at least the people who I buddy read it with, who are both women as well, they didn't have any issues with it either. Because again, you are right, there is a fine line with you being a male trying to write about other stuff, and I mean, I think it can also come across with any sort of violence you're putting in, because I mean, you labelled it as grimdark, which people are expecting it to be dark. But even then, some people might go, that's a bit much for me,
yeah.
and get like that. So it never felt like, I mean, it was horrifying to read it, but I never felt like it was, I don't know, like, not thought through, if that makes sense. So that's interesting, that you use metaphors to sort of help with that.
Yeah, I mean,
still that idea.
I really wanted, because that scene I knew wasn't going to be a tricky scene to write as well, because of what was involved. But I remember asking my friends, asking my agent, asking my editor. My editor is also a woman, that, just make sure if the scene doesn't work for you in any way, let me know. I don't want to let go of the scene, but I want to work on it to make it better. And luckily they were like, no, this is fine. It probably also helped that while the woman was the major focus, there's also a boy who's somewhere around, who's mentioned. That was done to him as well. So it doesn't look like, okay, this is just an anti-woman world. It's happening to men also in a very painful way. So maybe that helps it makes it more digestible. Hopefully, so far I have not received any issues with it. But,
Yeah. But also on that, you write women characters so well, and over like a vast kind of personalities, because then you have like Satyabhama, who's a fighter, training all her, what is it, little wolves they call themselves, and then you have people like I'm literally blanking on so many names because I can't think if I actually want to say a name of one because it technically might be a spoiler for book one.
I think yeah, Nala.
Yeah, Nala, like
I'll say.
she's so different, and then you have Matty as well, and especially her journey through this book as well. Um, you know, dealing with this is a very very slight spoiler, so I'm going to say it, kind of dealing with also being pregnant and motherhood
Yeah.
as well. And then you have a couple of other characters that are more subtle and more like, dancers and kind of concubines to other people and stuff like this. It's just, I don't know. That I think definitely helped because it's kind of like, okay, women have different like roles and they're not all just in a traditional male world kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're doing like, I don't know. I just love your women characters.
Thank you. I think that's.
my favorite.
I've always I remember I wrote for John Scalzi's Big Idea. I got a chance, an opportunity, and privilege rather, to write when I was writing Sons of Darkness. That what was your big idea behind this book? And I think I've spoken about this in many of my Instagram captions, that I wanted to write about damsels who cause distress rather than damsels in distress. This is actually something which is a very Indian experience because we have a lot of amazing mythological retellings that are not fantasy, but they're retellings. They always portray women as damsels in distress who overcome a patriarchal narrative, like who overcome patriarchy and come out on top. And that is great. That's beautiful. That is fighting that world. But then I read Samantha Shannon's interview when she was doing this Priory of the Orange Tree book. She said that, see, this is fantasy. Why do we have to recreate a realistic world which might have existed then? In her world, women have a lot of rights, right? So that's what I wanted to show. Like in Mathura, where Satyabhama exists, women can be soldiers, but in other parts of the world which I have, women can't be. Because I wanted to bring about a place where women have their own agency and they can be just themselves rather than having to carry a burden, or not burden, or the responsibility of their gender and fight the men. Like that's of course there, but I just wanted them to be themselves. Because I have always loved these characters. I have loved Galadriel. I want to have a grimdark Galadriel. I love. Let's talk about Marvel. I love Hela. Thor's sister. I think was pretty badass. So similarly, I've always loved these characters. Underworld, Kate Beckinsale. So when I was doing Dance of Shadows, I realized in hindsight that most of the major POV characters are women. You have your librarian princess, you have the temple concubine, and they all have extremely different character traits. And I just, this is going to be funny, but I am part of a Reddit group, like a huge group, which is men writing women, where generally they put up posts of, how men have very badly written women. And I completely get that. And, but I learn a lot from that as well. I understand what things work. And hopefully all those lessons have somehow trickled down and crystallized well in Dance of Shadows, because I just really wanted to create amazing women characters because I love those kind of women. And I just hope that I was able to create that for India, from an Indian literary scene perspective.
Yeah, no, it definitely comes true because a lot of people's excuses when I've had these conversations online, or I point something out in a certain book, I'm like, this woman or all the women are treated they're all like this. And a lot of people go, oh, it's true to the times. I'm like, you are writing a fiction book. You can change it. There is no excuse. The only time I kind of think that I would be willing to read something like this is if it was kind of like the point of the women, not necessarily rising up, but like the suffragette movement, like the Daughters of Izdihir, which I absolutely adore. That's like the suffragette movement set, I think, in fantasy Egypt.
Oh, wow.
So obviously the women don't have a lot of power, but that's
Yeah.
the whole point, is that it's
Mm.
the suffragette, we're going to rise up and we're going to
Yeah.
have the vote and all of this going on. So, and that was interesting again to read from. But yeah, sometimes so many people going into that's why so many women don't want to read fantasy by men, is because either people don't do it well enough, or they always look like this, or as you've probably seen on that Reddit thread, there's loads. There is loads. So it's definitely refreshing. And I mean, it shouldn't be. That's the bar shouldn't be that low, but it is that low.
Yeah.
To sort of read something and be like, oh, it's an epic grimdark fantasy, because again, it doesn't happen a lot in grimdark, because I think most authors in grimdark are male. To have a book which is predominantly female POV orientated.
Yeah, I think Joe Abercrombie inspired me there as well, because though his first Blade, the first 3 books didn't really have very strong women characters per se. The one female character that you did have was also like Pharaoh, who was has a lot of, let me call it, masculine energy, for lack of a better term. But in the next 3 books, The Age of Madness, you have like amazing women characters who are very powerful in their own right, and that was just amazing. But I think I wanted to try do something similar. But I do want to add here that it matters how the writer does it.
Yeah.
Because technically, A Song of Ice and Fire is very, let's say, realistic in that sense, in the way women's rights were. But somehow you really root for Arya Stark, for Sansa in the TV show, or Cersei Lannister, Catelyn Stark. These are all amazingly powerful characters because he delves into the mind, and I think he does it beautifully. And many women clearly think so too. And similarly, even when it comes to, there are extremes on both examples. Like I saw a post on women writing men, and you have these very acotar descriptions of men, who are midnight skin and all of that. And it's fun, it's interesting. So you obviously have different experiences on both sides, and then you come to this middle, which is slightly more realistic. But I think it's just a learning process, and you do you, and
it definitely does go both ways, especially with Sarah J. Maas books, not gonna lie. But I mean, also the point of those books are technically geared towards romance readers, which are more likely women. So of course you're going to kind of beef up the hot male guy with wings, like it's going to happen.
Just a lot of Brad Pitts out there. That's it.
Although weirdly enough, a book I'm reading right now, I don't think the author is done. Something's off about how she's writing the men. I don't know what it is. It's like she's not clicking. It's nothing.
That which book? That we wrote a story on.
The one I put in my Instagram stories, The Witch Who's Traced.
The Witch one had the witch word in the title. Okay.
Yeah, The Witch Who Traced with Death. People seem to be loving it. Just something is off about the men, because again, men and women are just different, and they deal with a lot of things differently. And I think she had like a scene in there where people were having a heart to heart, and it was like 2 men, and I'm like, men don't generally talk about feelings a lot of the time and stuff like that. So I was like, I don't know, something just was a bit off, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But I mean, it's nothing wrong with it. I just don't think that's how men would act. But this is completely different. Now we're gonna.
No, I get you, because that's what, like. Of course, there's an entire spectrum. You have your men who talk about feelings, or you don't. But similarly, like Karna and Duryodhan, they don't really ever talk about their feelings. Like, it's always, they're just like leg pulling and cracking jokes at each other, even while they're trying to undergo a very foolhardy mission in the empire. And the temple concubine is the only one who was able to pierce Duryodhan's mind and reveal what his plan is.
Yeah.
That why has he come here to find Karna again? So in that sense, here I can bring out my personal experience, because I'm a man, and how I behave with my friends. Like, again, it's nothing against anyone else who might do this or something like that. But my friends and I, we don't again discuss feelings beyond level 1 or something. It's always we pull each other's legs, and that might not be a healthy thing to do, or it might be. It's fine. I'm not passing judgment, but that's how I wanted to bring about my friendship, my camaraderie with my group into Karna and Duryodhan as well, because where they don't descend into like therapeutic levels of discussions of what they are feeling, it's more that they understand, and they're just here to support each other in whatever ventures they're taking, rather than understand each other. So that's what I felt I have experienced, and I want to bring that out.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, because it's probably hard as an author, and I'm also a writer as well, so I kind of struggled to not put something of your experience or yourself in a novel you're writing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't know sometimes if you kind of look and experience something and go, I want to write about that one day.
I think that makes for amazing reading, right? Because this is a genuine experience you have had, so you know the basics of it. It's
Yeah,
You're not manufacturing something; it's just you have experienced it, and I think that really creates amazing moments in books. So
no, it
yeah,
does. Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Like being a bad karaoke singer is something which I wanted to bring out in Dance of Shadows as well. And so you have this one brief moment. You have a medieval karaoke scene with Duryodhan, where someone traps him into singing a song which someone had already sung before, and what the audience reaction was. So that was something which I really enjoyed writing because I derived that from my personal experience. No one threw tomatoes at me, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think it was with Coldplay's Yellow. Everyone had sung that song, and I did not know that. I had come late to the party, and they said, "Listen, just go and sing Coldplay's Yellow." No one has sung it yet. No, okay, great. And when I started singing, I knew I'm a bad singer, but the way people's expressions had turned, I thought, I don't know, am I in a funeral singing a dirge? And then I realized that, okay, fine. I sang a song which has been sung like 11 times already. So
Yeah.
I thought, like, I'll bring that in.
No, yeah, that is hard. With a crowd, I definitely couldn't do that. Not gonna lie. Can you tell me a bit more about the creatures in Dance of Shadows?
Sorry.
Especially like the creatures
Mhm.
you created. So one of the Nagas, and then I call I can't say the words, so I call them Indian witches.
Yeah,
You
that's
kind of know what I'm talking about
yeah.
because I'm.
Yogini.
That's it. That was
Yeah,
it.
yoga. Like how you have yoga, you have yoginis. It goes from there.
Okay, that is the furthest thing that what came out of my mouth when I tried to say it.
Right.
Like, yeah, can you tell me a bit more about them? Are they again? I know you said most of the stuff is your creation, but is this something that you drew from again from Indian mythology, or something you just
Yeah,
sprang up?
yoginis. Yeah, yoginis were something which are derived from Indian history rather than mythology because they actually existed. Yoginis they were witches who were very different from the depiction of witches around the world. Most of the witches are described as hippie vegans, plant loving, poison ivies. With amazing heart, and they care for the farm animals and for the people, and they give them healing potions and so on and so forth. That has been the normal description. But Indian witches, on the other hand, firstly, none of them were ever burnt. They were feared, and they were asked that, okay, you know what, do whatever you want, but do it outside the village. Like have your temple outside the village. And most Indian temples are structured like this. Yogini temples are structured like this. There was no roof over them. Why so? Apparently, because when they used to do the rituals, they could fly, and so it allowed them to levitate in the air. And when I read this is something which is written on the temple inscriptions, and it might not be true factually, but the fact that this exists blew my mind, because again, this is a very not a very well known fact even for Indians. I remember I made a reel on this, and it became viral because people were astounded that we did not know about something so cool. Also the rituals, because how if you've seen any witch movie, generally it shows them dancing around the fire. Mostly that's generally the kind of thing when they're trying to call Satan. The witches here did not worship Satan. The witches here worship God, a female goddess. But you know what the ritual is? One, they have to do things which the normal conservative Indian society looks down upon, or rather considers taboo. They have to eat meat, they have to drink wine, and third, they have to engage in sex with male practitioners where the man cannot finish till the woman does. And then their essences are combined with wine and they drink it along with blood. Because all of this combines apparently to create this nectar which allows them to develop superpowers. And not just that, they have to do these rituals on top of a corpse. Now imagine, they have to have sex on top of a corpse. The corpse has to be a man, Okay, and the
Okay.
man's head has to be neatly decapitated in one single stroke. If it takes more than a single stroke, then you can't go ahead with that corpse, right? And obviously it has to be a fresh corpse. And they cover it with sandalwood paste and have sex on top of it, while all the other yoginis watch and chant rituals and mantras and prayers while they have sex, and ultimately they consume all of this stuff and then they gain powers. And I just thought, dude, what? That was so cool. So I just thought, okay,
Yeah.
somehow this was really amazing, and I wanted to bring them, show them a little bit in the book, and you know what? I'll let you have your reaction to whatever I said. I loved your reaction. Yeah, I know. I had the same reaction. Then I was like, what? It's
That was,
insane.
I mean, I was kind of on board with that until having sex on top of a corpse. That was
Yeah.
like, okay. So,
Sometimes for me, I'm just like, how is that logistically possible? But they
yeah,
did, and
yeah,
you have these pictures, paintings which exist from that time, and sculptures on temples which show them doing this. There used to be corpses on the floor, and they were dancing on it. They used to wear skulls of people as garlands, and I just think that that is so macabrely, like deliciously dark. I think this is what it
yeah.
is,
It
and
definitely
that
feels
customs
like fantasy as well, in a weird
exactly.
sense, because like most people hear witches and it's just due to sexing them, especially over in Europe. It's kind of where that stemmed from. But then you have proof that they actually did this. They believed in this that female goddess, which again I think is vastly different than what you get over in Europe and
Hmm.
America and stuff like that. And yeah, it just sounds a lot cooler in a
Yeah.
really weird, twisted, dark way.
I know. It was amazing. Like, in fact, there were warnings given in villages that, like, if someone has passed away in your family, especially if it's a man, so a dead body is generally kept outside the house while they figure out how to carry them to the cremation ground. Like, basically, we all put them on a wooden sort of a situation, put it on our shoulders, and then we carry them to the funeral ground. We do that even till date, okay, in Hindus at least, okay. So the body is kept outside, right? Villages were warned that make sure there's always someone watching the body, or the yoginis might steal, because the yoginis used to steal corpses and for the rituals, right? And it used to be, I don't know, just like, dude, this is so amazing. And then suddenly the yogis disappear, and you have no idea why have they disappeared. There is no there. India is a land of temples. My city is called the temple city of India, and apparently it has like 317 temples, which is like a lot. Okay,
Yeah,
and India itself has apparently millions of temples. But in all these millions, the yoginis only have four temples that survive. One of them is very close by to my place, like it's half an hour away. And when I did go there, I saw the sculptures of all these yoginis that are drawn. They all have heads of some other creature. Okay, and a lot of people, a lot of academics and a lot of historians believe that the yoginis believe that they could shape shift into them.
right.
So they were technically shapeshifters, and I was just like, again, this is such a fantasy element, which is there.
Yeah,
And yoginis don't have any mention in our mythology, by the way. They're all historical
okay.
aspects. So I thought that was very cool.
Yeah. Are you obviously because you wrote about them in Dark Shadows, but do you have your own kind of idea that you might put in a book or something of what happened to them and kind of where they sort of started? Like, because obviously, kind of fill in the gaps a little bit of what history can't tell you. Would you put your own spin on it, or do you have ideas?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I am writing a book on yoginis right now because, obviously, yoginis could not be the main central plot of Dance of Shadows. That is following something else. And yoginis make more or less cameos there. Very important cameos, but cameos nonetheless. And this is so much lore which I couldn't put there because otherwise the book would be like a lot longer.
Yeah.
Initially, there was one chapter where Bahura attends a ritual, and where I show off the ritual, but I couldn't put it there. And I thought, what, it's fine. I'll put it in this book. So I'm working on a short. It's not going to be as big as a dancer. It's not going to be as chunky as this. It's going to be half the size, and it's going to be a lot more fast paced and very different from the kind of book I write. Like the way I explored romance, I want to explore a serious style of writing just to see if I can do that. But there I'm discovering and I'm exploring yoginis, and I'm having so much fun researching them because it's just every time I read one new fact, it's something that I cannot believe that they used to do this. Like, when it comes to feminism and feminist tendencies, the fact that you did not let a man finish He could
Yeah.
never ever do that, and I think that is just amazing. To have that as part of a ritual. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Especially when it would have been pretty much unheard of when they were
Right?
practicing, when you think about it.
Yeah,
Oh, I can't wait to read that. They're fascinating.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Probably shouldn't be fascinated by them because they're pretty busy and dark, but there we go. They are fascinating. So just because we're running a little bit out of time, I'm gonna ask a couple more questions, which is like, not only are you a writer, you're also a lawyer, which takes a lot of time, but also a comedian. Like, how the hell do you find the balance? Is it easy for you to sort of switch hats between each kind of career? Or do you have to, like, I don't know, set yourself up, okay, I'm going to write today, so I need to put the lawyer and the comedian aside and put this hat on?
uh, it's mostly there's no balance whatsoever. I'm mostly juggling all these careers, and I'm hoping that they don't land on my face, and more often than not they do. But what I since writing is now my main career, that's what I want to really focus on. Writing is something which I try and do every day. But let's say if I have a case hearing, I'm doing a lot fewer cases now. But if I have a court matter, that day and the day before, I won't write, or writing will be reduced a lot because obviously I'll be spending time researching. Similarly, when I have stand-up comedy gigs, those days there will be less law and less comedy. It's like a Venn diagram which kind of keeps shifting, but writing is the one which tends to have the majority share in it. Um, it's extremely difficult balancing. I would love stand-up comedy is still fine because it's still more of a hobby. I wanted to pursue it deeply, but I realized that I can't have three main. Like Krishna can handle three main wives, I can't. Okay, so in that situation, even law is something. If you really want to make a career out of it, and I touch what I do well here, but if you really want to make a career, it has to be very time intensive. You have to do a lot of footwork and get clients and build a practice. But I'm enjoying my writing life so much that that's also like something which I do on the side, more or less. It is very difficult, but I really enjoy it. I love the hustle. It just keeps things very interesting and never lets me feel that this is becoming saturating for me, like or I'm getting bored, because it keeps things interesting. And also, I mean, this is something which I know you would respect because you do the same thing. It's multiple sources of income, so that definitely helps in trying times. So it's good. And I've always loved this. I remember when I was a kid, or rather when I was in law school, I had this bucket list that before I turned 30, I need to try at least 3 different professions which pay me, right? And so far I've tried 5 because I also teach law. That's not
Wow.
something which yes, I do. Like, in fact, just yesterday I recorded it, like an entire 1 hour video teaching some subject. And of course I do a little bit of content creating on the side, which allows me to do brand collaborations on Instagram. And I really have a lot of fun with it. I think it's Leonardo da Vinci has been my greatest idol in this regard because he had so many professions. He was a weapon designer, he built castles, and I think he was a gardener of sorts. And painting was just something which we all know, but he was so many other things. And I've always admired him for this. So hopefully, I'm trying to
Yeah.
like head in
No,
that direction. Like you, by the way, you have a lot of professions as well, don't you?
well,
Yeah.
same profession, just working for too many people. Because I mean, I'm currently house sitting, although not by the look of this. I had to come home because the internet's terrible. Um, Looking after a gazillion dogs, chickens and ducks and everything. But then I've got my usual clients' day-to-day job of my driving everywhere, looking after their horses and all of this, and it's like, but a lot of the time when I do my content creation, it's usually at like 5 a.m. before work.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, usually,
That's a
yeah. Yeah, I do that when I write as well early. Sometimes I'm like, some of my videos, I'll be like, shit, I've got to go to work, and then I'll come back and I'll finish the video, or like I'll rush through the video, which it's quite funny because it's again because it fluctuates. Because sometimes I've got a gap in the day, sometimes
yeah.
I don't have a gap in the day. It depends who, because I do a lot of ad hoc work, so people might book me in and then not book me. So it definitely keeps things a little bit more interesting because I could not do a corporate job, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
don't think that would do, because I just love being in control of my own hours.
Yeah. Wow, that's brilliant. I do miss it though a little bit sometimes whenever, because I worked in corporate for 6 years,
Mm.
and that guarantee that you have,
Yeah,
that
there is
no
such a
matter how
thing.
much you spend at the end of the month, even if you're broke, you will get that money,
Yeah.
was very satisfying. But then I realized that if I were given a chance, I would never go back, because once I've tasted this freedom that I have to be my own boss and to
Yeah.
control my own schedule, it's a drug. And I don't, corporate will be rehab, and I don't want to go to rehab, and this is something which I
Yeah.
really enjoy.
Yeah.
Why work for someone else, that sort of a thing.
Exactly. I'm very happy working for myself.
Exactly.
Go that way.
Cheers.
Right, a couple more kind of easy questions.
Okay.
What is the one book that has ever been written that you'd wished you'd written?
I wish I had written. Okay. Uh, okay. I was blown away by the prose of Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, George R. R. Martin is great and Joe Abercrombie is awesome, but there was this magic in her prose that those are really long chapters, but I didn't even realize when I used to finish one and go to the next. And I was really broke. And the thing is, Robin Hobb's character profiles, the one she has chosen in Ship of Magic at least, they are not your average main characters.
No.
They are like they have secondary or tertiary professions in this great magic. No prince, no king, no mega priest, no warrior, none of this. They're people who run a ship. That's it, and one merchant family. And but despite that, she has infused magic in such a beautiful way. I mean, you know what? If someone came and told me that this is a book about a ship which can talk, I'm like, okay, that sounds like something for kids.
Yeah.
But she has just done it so well that you think that no, this is part of the world and it's perfectly fine. So I love that. But to be really honest, if I were given that choice, if someone really gave, a genie came out and gave me that wish, I would choose A Picture of Dorian Gray, because Oscar
Oh.
Wilde wrote that book, and that is just like the wit and the philosophy which he exudes. And Picture of Dorian Gray is a very tiny book, but he's able to tell such a beautiful story that has so much subtext and with such sharp British humor. I love that, and I wish I could have written that.
I've not read that yet. I'm really bad at
Please.
reading classics. I've read
Uh,
Robin Hobb, but not Ship of Magic.
no, you know what? No, I'm with you, because you and I have very similar reading tastes, from whatever I've seen
Mm.
on your stories, right? And I agree. Like, for example, I tried Wuthering Heights, and I'm just like, okay, what is this? I can't get through it,
Yeah.
I'm sure once I get to 20-30%, maybe it will sink in with me, but I couldn't. But Dorian Gray, Picture of Dorian Gray is something which holds up in time. It still feels very modern. And I know you will end up highlighting a lot of passages because it's.
Okay. Add that to my very, very long list of books that I've got to read.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll read that. And to finish this off, what is the one book you'd always recommend somebody to read?
Okay, this is difficult. This is like, one episode of Letterboxd, which you keep seeing on Instagram, where they go and ask actors on the red carpet, what are your 4 favorite movies? And they just like stumble. I feel like I'm stumbling here.
You sort of blank immediately.
Okay, fine.
Get every book you've read.
Fine. If okay, it's a tie between 2 books. Let's say if it's a fantasy book, and I want someone to have a really good time. Straight in the first chapter, I think I'll say Lies of Locke Lamora.
Okay, yeah, that's not bad.
I think it's very funny, witty. It's not that fantasy heavy that someone might get turned off who's not a fantasy reader. I think it just works for everyone of all reader kinds. It's just so much fun, right? I don't think there's anyone who does not like Ocean's 11. Similarly, I don't think there's anyone who might not like
No.
at least the first book, Lies of Locke Lamora. Maybe that's what it
Kind of works as a standalone as well, though.
Correct.
As well.
Exactly.
It's not like
So-
you're fitting to a big series, so yeah.
Exactly. So I think that works. Apart from that, if I just want to, because I would love to spread smiles. I think just any Woodhouse book, a Terry Pratchett book, Guards. It is so funny, and his opening page where he's giving an introduction as to why has he written about this is also hilarious, because he speaks about, I am tired that these poor guards in every Tom Cruise movie or in every action movie, they get beaten up and all they're trying to do is their job. Okay. And so I wanted to write a book from their perspective, and I think it was hilarious. And Terry Pratchett, is just like the god amongst writers. He's
I
just spread so much
can't.
smiles. And
I can't get
sorry,
into him. I can't get into his
really?
books. Yeah, I tried Colour of Magic, didn't like it. I tried.
Hello, magic is not good. It's not. It's
I know.
yeah.
Then I went with Mort, still didn't like it.
Okay, try guards. Guards. Okay, mod is also difficult to get by. I directly started with guards, and it was amazing. I tried reading Color of Magic. I couldn't get through. Mort, I somehow finished, but it took me a lot of time. But guards, and the entire guards series. You have different
Yeah.
branching series, right? It's really nice. Trust me, it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, Color of Magic is something which even I couldn't get through per se, because again, it was
a lot of people state that. A lot of people say,
Yeah.
don't start with Colour of Magic. It's like, what? It's book one.
Yeah.
It's like, it's terrible. And I think half of what threw me is there's no chapters.
Sorry.
There's no chapters in his books.
No. Guards had chapters. I think. I mean, like
Oh,
at least chapter breaks.
Colour of Magic didn't. There was breaks, but there wasn't like chapter 1, chapter 2. It was just like a good
Oh, okay.
one. So I was like, and I didn't. If I knew it going in, I'd be like, oh, okay, it'd be fine. But because I didn't, I was like, what? Because I borrowed it from my library via Libby as well. So it's hard to flick through the book. But I mean, yeah, I might give Guards a go, but I don't know. I'm not a
Yeah,
massive
please do.
fan.
You'll have a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, Ross from Hardy's books adores Terry Pratchett. Like,
Yeah, I mean, he's
Lovely.
amazing.
um,
I wish I read more of his books. I've only read 3 or 4, but again, like you, I have this TBR that does never stop, and I want to read one book of every author. So I just finished Jade City as well by Fonda Lee.
Oh, okay,
That was my
yeah.
first urban fantasy, and again, that was amazing.
Yeah.
So
I really liked Jade City. Didn't like Jade War. That took me 6 months to finish.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm curious what you think of that, because another friend of mine who we have very, very close tastes,
Yeah.
we felt exactly the same. We both loved Jade City. When we both got to book 2, we were like, what's going on? And then she went on to book 3, and then she went, I can't finish this, and DNF'd it. So
Oh, that's a shame. Okay, damn.
Yeah.
Because the first book was very cinematic, I mean, it's not that I'm highlighting any lines. You don't have like quotable lines per se.
Yeah.
But it was very cinematic. That like I could see the action scenes very well, and it was very cool. And it was my first urban fantasy. I've never read urban fantasy before, so it was cool.
no,
But
that's
damn.
where I got it, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Have
Interesting.
you read Rivers of London?
No.
That's an urban fantasy. It's a mystery that I love it. So I think you'd probably like it. It's very, again, British humour as well.
Okay. Oh, I love British humor.
Yeah, it's like, again, it's a detective series, but it is, again, British centred a lot of the time. Yeah, because
I read City of Stairs. I don't know if that counts as urban fantasy or not, but City of Stairs was also pretty amazing. Detective fantasy again.
Is that by the author of
but-
Fantasy?
Yeah.
Yeah, Robert Jackson. Is it Robert Jackson?
Robert Jackson Bennett. Yeah.
Yes. I've heard that. I've not read that. I love that. I also love I think he wrote The Tainted Cup, which was amazing.
Oh,
That's like a murder mystery. Like, the opening chapter, somebody died because they have a plant growing out of them.
they have a plant growing out of them.
Yeah. It's
That is-
creepy. It's weird.
Wow.
It's like a gender-bent Sherlock Holmes.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
What book is this?
The Tainted Cup.
I've heard so much about that book.
So good.
Yeah.
Really good. It's incredibly good.
Okay.
The audio is amazing.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But
I really want to read that because I've just heard the best things from everyone. I don't think I've heard a single bad thing about that book yet.
no,
And
it is. Yeah. It's
Brilliant.
really good. And so on that note, just adding more to your TV.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. It was an honor and privilege to be your first. And there was so much fun. And you were like a natural. Yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah,
Yes,
hopefully helps
forward to more of your
that
interviews.
happens. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for coming. If you just want to let people know where they can find you, and I will put links in the description and whatnot.
You memorized that bit, didn't you?
Everybody says it, so I'm like, we'll just do it. It'll be fine.
No, you did it brilliantly. I love that. You can find me on Instagram. My handle is very embarrassingly so, The King Beyond the Wall. I had this when I was in law school. I did not know I was going to be an author then. I thought it was very cool. But yeah, The King Beyond the Wall, no spaces. And I have my website, gouravmohanty.com. All my other socials are there, so you can just check it out. That website is something which I have created with a lot of effort. and creativity. So do definitely check that out because yeah, I like it because not a lot of people visit your website as much as they do your Instagram. So I'm just like always directing people there. And yeah, this is Dance of Shadows. It's a gorgeous cover by Michaela Alcaino, and there's Sons of Darkness there. I'll just show it. This is Sons of Darkness. My copy has been eaten by rats. If you can see,
God.
it's grimdark at its best. But as in the eating, the book you can do Joe Abercrombie as well. But yeah, this is Sons of Darkness. This is Dance of Shadows.